So here we are.
One question.
Yeah.
I haven't sent you my links. Do you want them through Instagram or through here?
Sure. Send them through Instagram, and I'll add them to the list.
Okay. Cool.
All right. So first of all, can everyone see Paul's?
Yes.
Yep.
Let me just embiggen it a little bit. Just take a quick little stroll through really a very impressive collection. The variety is pretty sweet. And okay, so I'm just going to go through in the order that I received them. I had the names down for who is who, but you're just going to have to step forward, or if the person's not in yet, then we'll just double back. But here's the first one. Anyone claiming this one?
This was my choice.
Ah, okay, nice.
So I like this very much. It came in beginning of this year. It's quite new, and it immediately impressed me when I've seen it on Instagram. Because of the colors and also because of all these arrangements of this, what is this, a square or rectangles, right? Is this the right word? These rectangles, it looks to me, maybe the arrangement is somehow, I don't know if it is a found piece of work or if it is made.
Always found. Always found.
Always found, because it can be also made because it is so nicely structured with all this, also these, this what is called, this fibers, or this fiber structure inside of the rectangles and the color and everything. So I like this very much because of the colors, because of the arrangement of the geometric forms there, and the fine structure. And this is what impressed me. It's a nice piece of work, which I would also put on the wall in my room.
Oh, thank you.
So this is my favorite.
Oh, thank you so much. I found this up in Sendai in Japan, kind of north of Tokyo. It's a place called Matsushima. It's a really famous spot. It's like supposed to be one of the 5 most beautiful views in Japan. There's hundreds of small islands which are sort of populated with pine trees. And Basho, the famous haiku poet, went there, and he wrote a little haiku that just begins, "Oh, Matsushima," because he was sort of blown away by the beauty. And I found this on a sort of temple pillar, and it's actually not stickers, it's pieces of paper with lots of kanji, Chinese characters written on it, which serve to protect the temple or shrine. And so I called it talisman because these are lots of talismans, and they're kind of like gods. Like each one of these pieces of paper is like a spirit or a god protecting the temple. And the word kami in Japanese means God, but it also means paper. The same sound means those two things, totally different sort of kanji or origin. And people have, stuck these things there, and there's hundreds of them, and they've been there for years and years. So some of them are kind of peeling off or degraded or totally rotted away, and some of them are quite new. And this was just my little framing, my little selection. And I love it because it's accidental, because people weren't putting it there to compose it in a particular way, but then maybe they were as well, because they wanted, or I don't know actually who does this. I don't know if it's visitors or the temple priests, but I guess they put the piece of paper there so it would be seen. And they intended it to be noticed, maybe. So it's found, it's accidental, but there's also intention and history behind it. And yeah, I was happy I found this. Thank you for choosing it.
Did you do a lot of post-production on it? Like, were those oh, sorry, Anne, I just saw you raise your hand. I just jumped in. But did you do much post-production on it? Like, the colors look a little bit popped and it looks, I don't know, like grainier, or how much, like, what did you do after the fact?
I mean, I only ever use my, iPhone, and I don't have Photoshop or anything. Although Alan is starting to change my mind. So I usually just put all my photos through Snapseed, that free app. And I usually just whack up the contrast and saturation, sometimes the ambience as well. And that's usually it. It usually takes about 15 to 20 seconds to edit it. And I don't want to spend too much time. And so as soon I knew when I'd seen this, you get a sixth sense, don't you, that something's going to look cool, even if it looks a bit pale. And as soon as I, whacked up those parameters, I just thought, okay, yeah, this is going on Instagram today.
Yeah, it's a banger.
Doesn't always work, but it's just like, yes, that's good.
Yep, I know the feeling. What were you going to say, Anne?
Well, it was along those same lines. I'm watching the flow of color here. And as you were describing it, it's a pillar. So I'm like, what was the original color? And then, of course, the way that these things weather, it almost looks as if they'd been painted over. The movement of the color is amazing. And then, of course, some of them bring their own color, like, right here on the lower right, it's sort of a greenish white, which is, I suppose, the reflection of the, natural light on the white sticker or whatever it is. And you have all these wonderful, really warm colors, and then the cool colors down here, which, again, is, you wonder, was this the intentional artist? Was the pillar, what is the pillar? Is it cement or wood, or,
Oh,
what did we start with?
I think it's, actually, sorry, maybe not exactly a pillar. It was just under I'm starting to remember, it's just under the eaves of the little roof of the shrine. And maybe it was, it must have been a flat surface. And I think it's metal, like it's sort of like a dull metal of the part of the kind of, I don't know architectural terms. But it's really interesting that you say it's got these reflections, because it was sort of in a kind of corner or a nook. And so it's got a little bit of natural light reflected on it, a little bit of shadow, maybe a little bit of a painted surface reflecting on it. So there's a really cool, like, accidental quality of the ambient color as well.
Well, and metal is so wonderful that way. All of us folks, it's, it may have rusted into things, or if you try to paint it, it isn't going to hold. It's gonna, start crumbling off. So you got this really wonderful color palette there. You've got the warms and the cools, and we've got a little purple and yellow going on there, which I know is a favorite of yours. It's really terrific. I just love it. And like,
thank you. It's really weird seeing it through other people's eyes. Sorry.
Nice. Hi, Josh. Welcome. What would you like to say?
For me, it's this thing I keep coming back to, this sort of interaction between intent and the unstructured, chaotic thing that happens in nature and in decay, with signs of human action and intent. So there's like layers of it. There's the fact that the sticker is a perfect rectangle. You seldom see those in nature. Not knowing what you know, I can see that it's probably a human thing. And the scratches seem to indicate human intent. And I see human intent. I see human intent in your framing and composition of it. And then all of that is interplaying, dancing with a natural, the rust of the surface, the way things degrade, is sort of an interaction with its underlying structure, but also there's chaos theory going on. I just love the way these two things dance, and it's very clear which one has primacy, and it's very unclear which what I meant to say was unclear which thing has primacy, and unclear who's got the lead in this dance. And there's this aspect to which you're the observer, but by being the observer, you collapse the waveform to create meaning. Because then when I see this, I get this feeling I get whenever I see really effective abstract art, which is I get this moment of stillness, and I get this sense of consequence. And it's hard to say why. I'm going to make a dumb metaphor, and please forgive me for it. In the movie 2001: Space Odyssey,
I like the
there's the moment where you see the pillar. The pillar is weird, and it's unworldly. Of course, they amp it up with music, but it's a rectangle.
Yeah,
it's a rectangle in a natural world that doesn't have a space for a rectangle. So it's out of place, and it's somehow. And so there's this sense of it having an enormous sense of meaning and significance, even though it's really just a black rectangle. Let's be honest. I mean, low cost special effects. So when I see art, when I see something that gives me that I'm standing in front of the obelisk feeling, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's significance here. And it always has something to do with that dance. It's almost like a self-referential moment. We're in the midst of chaos ourselves, our perceptions. Yeah. And then we are dancing with it ourselves. And so I feel this simpatico. It's like dancing between meaning and nothingness at the same tempo that I am. I immediately felt it with this photo. Great stuff.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be the recipient of your words this time, Josh. I just love listening to you. It's a pleasure to have you talk about my photo like
Dada, baby.
You can I just you remind me of a conversation I just had day before yesterday. My friend went to this Shinro Otake exhibition in Tokyo, and he's this amazing kind of collage artist, and kind of chaotic, and he puts so much stuff on these massive canvases. He never throws anything away. And at first it's just a mess, really. It's chaos, it's anarchy. But then, of course, the more you lick, things kind of start emerging from it. And one thing that occurred to me is this idea about the figure and the ground. And when you have a figure, a representational figure on a background, I find it quite not boring, but there's one meaning. It's a person, and they're standing against a wall. They're in a room or something, like the history of Western art, essentially. And as soon as you get abstract arts, for me, it flips. So the ground, and for us, literally the ground you walk on, becomes the figure. And yet it's not sort of focused, it's not intentional. Your direction isn't sort of instructed in one particular way. And so when the ground becomes the figure, we do the interpreting, and figures emerge from the ground. And so when you have that sort of that dance of chaos, that flip you are sort of talking about, where you're immersed in it, you have to do a bit of work. You have to go halfway to it, and then you're rewarded. And just as you were talking, I noticed a figure emerging from the ground here. Can you see at the top left that oblong that's coming down?
Yeah, he's a running man.
Like a white little running man
running towards us.
And of course, this is kanji. These are Chinese characters based on actual objects in the world. And I don't know what that kanji is, but maybe it is connected with a running man. I don't know, but yeah, thank you for your words. It means a lot to me.
I just want to say too, you talking about ground, Paul. Brings back the conversation we had about ground of being, and so
Yes.
it takes on a whole spiritual element. For those of you not familiar with Paul Tillich, he says the only good definition of God is our ground of being, which I relate to. So it kind of adds a whole spiritual element to this whole thing.
Thank you. I love that phrase, the ground of being. It's very resonant for us. Yeah.
I have one other thing to say about this business of trying to find the words, and it has to do with seeing and observing, and it's something that we all do as photographers. But and I'm going to tell it with another metaphor. I was into amateur astronomy, and I set up a telescope in my backyard, and I pointed it at Jupiter. And my wife at the time was excited, and she came out to see it. And then she was really disappointed. She said, "It's just like a little ball. It's like, it doesn't look like anything." And I said, no, you can see a couple of the bands if you pay attention. And she's like, "This is just dumb. There's like much better photographs that you can see." I mean, no, you're actually looking at the real thing. But the point was, one of the things somebody told me early on at a star party, don't just look through the eyepiece. They said, draw it. Take a pencil and try to draw what you see. It'll make you see more deeply. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but I did it, and it made a difference. And then, like with whiskey, tasting whiskey is like, what does whiskey taste like? It tastes like whiskey. I don't know. You trying to write notes about it forces you to find words, forces you to observe more deeply. This business that we're doing right now, where we look at somebody's art and we try to find the words to it, makes us look more deeply. I have this again and again in these photo zoomers, where there's a photograph that I looked, and I maybe spent 11 seconds looking at it, and it's not the one I picked, and I moved on, but somebody else picked it, and here we are talking for 5, 10, 20 minutes about a picture, and you keep seeing more. And that's something that happens to us in the real. That's what we do when we walk around with cameras, is we look a second time. Shutting up.
Go ahead, Ann.
Question, Josh. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
How do you encourage observation? Because like, I have an alert on my iPhone that tells me, when likes are coming in. And there are some people that will hit 20 different images in 1 minute.
Yeah.
How do you, I don't know, maybe it's a losing battle for people to slow down, but it doesn't seem to me that people are really looking. And that's one of the reasons why I find this forum so wonderful, because we are taking the time to observe and to really look more deeply.
Like you would in a gallery.
There are people, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I was thinking the same thing, that I can be guilty of that too. Like scrolling through, sometimes it feels like I've got to get through these. Like I need to see as much as I can. And I know immediately that I like something, but I don't spend time with it. And it's a good reminder to, like, especially when it's on your phone, but more so when it's on your computer, to like embiggen it like it is on my, like make it a decent size and really spend some time with the ones I often save the ones I like, but I rarely go back and like really check out the ones that I save, So it's a good reminder. Go ahead, Ann.
By the way, I love your word embiggen.
Yes.
And as we were talking, I'm looking through this, and right there in the center, just below that very prominent white rectangle, you have this little area that looks like we're looking out into the cosmos.
Yeah.
Like, whoa, wait a minute. I didn't catch that right at the beginning, but it's suddenly, is that like a galaxy or what? You're like, wait a second. Yeah. So now all of this is, we're floating in space or something. And these satellites or, space junk or whatever it is now above, either the outer space, or it's an abyss we're looking down into.
Wow.
So the depth that you can get from these, the shifting perception is terrific too. And of course, as you look, and we're discussing all of these, concepts of focus and whatnot, I'm like, hey, where are we? Are we, Major Tom flying through the air ourselves? So what are you thinking about?
Well, it's that, doing that spirituality feature was so interesting for me to see how other people have similar ideas to me, but also how they perceive and approach their work is just fascinating. And one thing, was it Sylvia? God, I can't remember. I'm the one that created it. I can't remember. But, she brought up the William Blake quote, which I love, to see a world in a grain of sand. And, just connecting with Josh again, it's just so important to look more closely. And, I just snapped this thing and I've taken thousands of photos, and, you've chosen this one. There's nothing particularly miraculous about it, although there is, but there's something particularly miraculous about every single part of the universe if you look closely. And that's what we're doing now. So what the hell have we missed otherwise? And yes, this is a spiritual thing, but isn't it also a very political thing as well? Because who else are we not paying attention to? What else are we not paying attention to? And like, Tim was saying, you just, like Instagram's kind of made, for scrolling. It's made for inattention. That's the whole point of it. And so you're literally on not literally, metaphorically, on a conveyor belt, whizzing around a gallery, and you're not allowed to step off it. And so, yeah, it's really important to look more closely, isn't it?
It emphasizes a different kind of seeing, and there probably is a defense for superficial seeing too. There's probably a defense for seeing 700 images in an hour, or in your 10-minute commute, anyway.
Hopefully not while you're driving.
Go ahead, Nirvana. Unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah. Sorry, today I'm a bit with a little sleep. I had this big thing last night and I didn't think I could make it, but I woke up. And what you're talking about, what Wendy was saying, it just happened to me. Like I woke up, I'm like, I really want to get here. I need to do my homework, drink that coffee and start looking at those images. So you start going through them, and I like to go really slow. I don't like Instagram because just like you said a moment ago, we're like on a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
You don't really get to see stuff. I'm the daughter of a painter. I'm used to seeing like the painting on the wall, on the floor, I find that you have to see the thing really. So yes, I totally skipped through this photo. And now that Gurdun put it, we're like, oh, I think that's the point, Kathy. I always turn you into Kathy. I'm so sorry. Wendy.
It's okay.
I think that's the point of, like, that's why we meet. And that's like, you start seeing with your account, like who comes around, we're all different in our little behaviors, but you start seeing that somebody took some time to read, to look, and then you even end up looking more at, I think it's the action that creates it, because there's also like gazillion bots. Don't you like ever put an image and then you've got like 3 comments, please add this to whatever community. So I think our attention right now, visually speaking, is partly faked. We are like what we think is other people are seeing in our images or not. We don't really, we have a fake filter through it digitally, or virtually. So I think that these things are really good, because I went through that image, I didn't even register it was there, and I was trying to be thorough. So imagine that.
It is worrying.
One thing to think about too
Thank
is
you.
we are inundated, not every day, but every hour and sometimes every minute with images coming from every direction. And
Yeah.
it is overwhelming. I was at the Art Museum yesterday, which is a really impressive art museum here in Albuquerque. And I saw about 3/4 of it. I moved through it pretty quick because I can only process so many images. And then I found this whole room of images I really want to spend time with, but I didn't have the bandwidth. So I think we have to think about the bandwidth and how much we can, take in as human beings. And I think that enters into the equation too. So, and the amount of images on Instagram every day, I mean, I don't know the exact number, but it's got to be astronomical. So it's almost like contemplating how big the universe is. It's like your mind cannot process that much information. So I'm kind of, stretching this out, this analogy out. But to me, that's what we're talking about here, I think. I want to make one logistical note. If we spend this much time on every image, we're going to be here for 8 hours. And if everybody's okay with that, then that's cool. But I just wanted to.
Well, and I was thinking the same thing, but in the end, it's just to get us, it's all just stepping stones to get us talking. If we don't make it through all of them, you know what I mean? Like, it's all just about getting us talking and using it as a jumping off place. But I agree. Let's move on. Onward. Who can anyone claim this one? Oh, this might be.
I chose that one. I don't know if anybody else did, but I.
Okay, good. Yeah, go for it, Wendy.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. I just, Paul, I just find your work, just really fabulous. I see bold graphic images and then a lot of texture studies. I think they're really well framed and they're really well balanced compositions.
Thank you.
And as a viewer, I really find them interesting and engaging, something I can really spend time with. It's interesting that what I find in your work is there's a huge emphasis and sensitivity about color. I see you as a color master. I'm kind of, and it's interesting, I chose this image because it is a lot more subtle. And I think maybe it reflects my mood because I also selected kind of a similar palette in Muriel's work. So I don't know, there's so many favorites. I can't say this favorite, but I love this photograph. I love the minimalism, but at the same time, the texture is really interesting and engaging and has depth to it, which I just find it really interesting. To me, this image is poetic. There's a stillness to it. There is a elegance, a stillness, a beauty that is so peaceful. And I don't know if it has to do with the simple forms or the color palette, but I have a feeling those contribute to it. I have a question about your work. Do you normally photograph under cloud cover or in sunny conditions? Because
good question.
I'm just interested in your color and your light, and so that's why I asked that question.
That's a really good question, and that's why I asked I'm making another feature for Hintology about how does location and environment affect your work. And I asked Josh, I can't remember who else I asked. My memory is absolutely terrible. Muriel as well. I'm just really interested in that. I tried to get as many people from as many different places and countries in the world as I possibly could. Because after talking to Alan, again, where the spirituality feature came from, he was talking about how so much had shifted during his life as he moved around, and his approach to photography and how it changes what and how he photographs. And I love the idea of going around with an umbrella. He needed an umbrella because the light is just too intense. It causes shadows, and you know, I totally understand. I hate photographing on sunny days. I'm my eyes are very sensitive. I'm a Brit. We don't really know what the sun is. Occasionally it comes, and my skin will burn within a minute. But in Japan, I walk around wearing sunglasses in winter and summer, like all the time, of course. And I go outside in summer in Japan, and in winter, the problem is the sun is so low. And so I'm just blinded by it. But nobody else is wearing sunglasses, but I literally cannot see anything. I'm so blinded that I have to put sunglasses on. I can't see things, and it's horrible. And then there's the shadow, and the contrasts are too extreme. It's too strong. So whenever it's cloudy, whenever it's overcast, if it's threatening to rain, that is the perfect condition. And it does something. It diffuses the shadows. It makes things more flat and two-dimensional. And this picture, I can't really remember where my photos come from. I don't really care, but I think this one is turned upside down, and it's rain seeping down a wall, which is where, of course, you get these organic, natural forms from. And so, yeah, you're absolutely right. And there's Alan right there. I should have my sunglasses on now.
I'm demonstrating my simpatico with you. I wear these in the winter all the time.
I appreciate it. I recommend turning down the brightness on your computer.
I just want to say about this piece, it's kind of what's the word? Not ironic, but it's to me it looks like a Japanese print. So it's apropos of your environment.
Totally.
Yeah, definitely. It has that sort of inky quality. Yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ann.
I just wanted to say.
Oh.
Go ahead, Ann.
Who's that?
Ann's up. Ann's been very studiously raising her hand in the chat, and so I feel like that's.
All those years in the classroom, I can't help it.
I appreciate it.
Okay. Well, what my comment about this was it's so atmospheric. I know that it is some kind of metal and paper, just because I know what Paul is up to and where he is.
Oh, this is a stone wall, I think.
Okay. But I know it isn't the scene that I am envisioning. It's a representation in a sense, and yet this kind of gives me this dark, earthy feel, and then it's like the snow falling on cedars sort of moment there, and which is funny because I'm like, I know this isn't snow falling on cedars. This is not a pipe, and yet you get so immersed in it. It's like, you can see either the like a mountain of mud or something here, and the water coming down, and other, and then, but you look longer and it can be some other kind of thing, a looming cloud, or you flip it and, have the white part be like, not the sky, but, some other light source or something. And then you have all of these, things under here that are so organic, that could be mountains and trees or earth and pathways and stuff like that. So again, even though it's minimalist, as Wendy said, but there's so much range in it, and so much imagination that can be had for this. I just love it.
It's nice and open, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I'd like to just speak to something that was said about the last picture, although it wasn't about the picture. It was about the medium we're working in. And I think we have to make a distinction between a photograph and an Instagram, because although they both use a camera, the photograph is an object. It's a tangible three-dimensional object that exists in space. Instagram, there's no object. It's simply electrons. So there's something very different about the two. If it's an object, particularly an object in your own home, then day after day, year after year, it's going to unfold on you with infinite amount of depth. Because you look at it in a happy day, you look at it when it's overcast, you look at it when you're crying, you know, all these things come to the moment of view. Whereas Instagram tends to be a flip through. However, I don't think we have to take it at that value. We can look at one Instagram picture for an hour if we want to. Or we can look at one picture for the rest of our life if we want to. Of course, there is a general kind of flow, and we fit into that flow. And of course, we just flip and we flip. Got it, got it, got it. And on some level, maybe it is, you know, working deep within us. But my feeling is that we're picking up the first layer. This looks like this. Sometimes we may comment and think about it a little bit, or for that matter, the photographer may have added a comment or a kind of title to it, which again gives us that kind of entry, that quick entry. I want to talk about captions, but I won't do it right now. I think what's important is that we come to understand the medium, and we're in a transition zone between the still photograph on the wall or in a book. And similarly in a book, it has objectness. On our phone, it does not have objectness at all. It's simply a transmission of light that we read certain things from. And what I'm grappling with a lot is the difference between the Instagram and the actual print. And I can't say that I've come to any great conclusions other than, yes, there is a predisposition to keep, you know, I forget what the word is, going through all these images and maybe giving a little like or a little, yeah, like that one, good shot, nice use of color, whatever, just very fast. Nobody's writing essays about these pictures in their comments, I've noticed. And in fact, I think there is a limit to how many words you can put into a comment before you get cut off. Because I actually did try responding to a picture in depth and was cut off by Instagram or possibly Facebook. In any case, I think I'll just leave it there. But I did want to say that even though the predisposition is to continue to scroll quickly, we are not programmed to do that. We have choice. We can stay with one. We can write any individual a very long response, even if we're cut off by Instagram. We could find their email somehow and do that. So I don't think we should, you know, use that predisposition as an excuse on any level, be it in what we're posting, be it in our responses, be it in how long or how deep we look at the pictures. I would like to see them larger than my phone, and it's beautiful to see them up on my computer screen now. Certainly, I give it a lot more attention than I tend to with my phone. But I'm sort of the mindset that we go against the current, that we do look deeper into these pictures and look at one picture for 10 minutes rather than 15 pictures for 7 seconds each or whatever. Because I think there's a lot of depth in there, and I think we're a little bit uncomfortable with that depth. And so it's easier to flip and pick up the surface of the next one, rather than actually let these images start grumbling in our inner realms. And
I love that phrase.
and bring up whatever kind of comfortable or uncomfortable feelings that they do bring up, or logical arguments that they bring up. Because in this one, I see a very logical argument. I also see the Chinese brush painting in it. But in Chinese brush painting, they're so concerned with aerial perspective that things of depth are lighter and fainter as they go farther and farther away. And this is all of the same tonality. So it's saying that this mountain range, which on one hand gets smaller at one point, which should also imply depth, is contradicted by the fact that it's not getting fainter. There's no atmosphere. And so my logic is fighting me here. It's a koan. And I want to speak to that a little further, but not at this occasion. Anyways, I just dropped that, see what people can do with it, kick it around, whatever.
Thank you so much, Lorne. That idea of, I mean, what we're doing, this sort of long looking, it's something that we're not used to, or we're slightly uncomfortable with. It reminds me, I read a book called The Art of Noticing, and it's a wonderful little sort of handbook in a way. It gives loads of different suggestions about how to look more closely in a different way. And one of the anecdotes in it that sticks with me is about a professor whose name and university, an American university, I can't remember, but she encourages her students, or it's one of the assignments, to go to a museum or gallery, find a painting or a picture or a photograph or a sculpture, and look at it for 3 hours. Wow. And they have to stay there for 3 hours. Not making any notes, not talking, just looking. And after 30 minutes, you get a bit impatient, bored. After an hour, you start to realize, good God, what have I been missing? After an hour and a half, you're thinking, maybe that's long enough. Keep sticking. 2 hours, maybe you reach enlightenment. I don't know, 2.5 hours, really need to go to the bathroom. But when you get to 3 hours, something's changed. Like they say with long-term meditators, Buddhist monks and stuff, it rewires your mind or whatever, and you start to develop this muscle, this attention that we all are capable of. And it's kind of part of their artistic training. So maybe we should do these things for 3 hours, and we should just look at one.
Did you say that's the art of seeing?
Art of noticing.
Art of noticing.
Of noticing. Thank you.
I'm just going to try and find it.
As I look at this picture, right in the lower left corner, I see a snail climbing the mountain. And it kind of strikes me as apropos for this conversation.
All right.
Thank you for the reminder, Alan.
Go ahead. Muriel raised her hand ages ago. Go ahead and unmute. So there you go.
Yeah, I think it's just what Alan says. I just was I would like to talk about the little form in the lower left side. I see a little figure which stretch her hand and is showing like the sun rising behind the mountain, and it's the diagonal. I don't know how to say that. Well, it's the same as the mountain curve. So that's one more reason for loving this image.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I can see that.
All right, we're going to go to the next one.
Oh.
Can anyone lay claim to this one? I believe this might have been Greg's. Yeah, this would be my choice for Paul's. It goes beyond finding wall abstracts in that we all see and frames 3D and 2D abstraction. As with all of his pictures, the colors are beautifully edited. So that was Greg's call on this one.
Thank you, Greg.
I mean, the framing is great.
This is, oh, sorry.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I really like this piece. It's like one of those collages of the first collages, like Braque or Picasso, where like sticking pieces of stuff into the thing. And it's really weird because it doesn't seem to me like it's so much like it's a photograph, but no, it's like more a collage, a physical collage. Because I think because the top corner where there's like the ripping of the paper or something on top, it kind of looks to me like two figures talking. So it's like my mind just accepts those are figuratively real, and therefore the rest of the lower part, the lines, the ladders or windows, I really like this one the first time I saw it because it flips my head from, let's say, what seems drawn or a little bit like I had to interpret figures, and those seem real, like perfectly real, and the realer parts of the photograph seem to me more kind of drawn or added or something. I think this is one of my, at some point I think I told you that I'm trying to look to make collage in the mesocosmos, like not in the micro, not taking macro photos or in the very large, but in the middle here where we are. And I think that this does it like extremely well. It's baffling, yet so eloquent. Like, nothing's going on here. Very normal. Nothing in the far galaxy of anything. It's just really, at least for my cognition, it flips it.
It has a kind of Fibonacci kind of to it. I feel like there's the first square where the two figures are has its own little section, and then that full rectangle with the blue has the second section, and then the third section with the slats and the different, like the grid kind of work. It feels like it has three separate things that all equally expand and expand and expand, kind of like Fibonacci style.
Yeah, I can see that. What must be what drew me to it. And you know, this is like a weird thing for me because I don't take photos of things. I want to take a photo that becomes something in itself. But because these were sort of stacked against a wall and flat, it was just waiting for me essentially. Yeah, that's cool. I'm glad it works.
All right, we're going to go to the next one because we're already at an hour. Okay, so I think more than one person chose this one.
I know I did. Am I the only one here?
Maybe. Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Anne.
Okay. Well, this is much like the temple one in the sense that it's a metal and weathering and all that. What really drew me to this one is the amount of depth you can see in it. It's almost as if this was paint on glass or something.
It is. It's graffiti on glass outside the station.
Oh, it is.
Yeah,
okay. I thought so. Because you can look, there's so much depth. And yet sometimes you can get this with metal stuff. I know Wendy does that at times, where the paint, and then if the color, you know, is balanced the right way. You look like you're looking through something because you have all the very bold colors or bright or something, and then the contrast in the back.
Yeah.
And it almost looks, I mean, we might have, again, characters or writing here. And then I think you flipped
Yeah, the
this because
graffiti,
it looks, the water is dripping sideways, which is, you know, great. You've broken the law of physics. This is terrific.
I
And
love flipping things around. It's fun, isn't it?
yeah, well, that's what makes it art instead of physics. And so, you know, and this is one of those ones we could put on a spindle in the museum and kind of turn it every 15 minutes or so and let everybody, you know, gawk at it from a different angle. So, and then you have Crackler up here in the very top left-hand corner. And then you have the just paint smears or whatever it was. And then you have like the scratchiness on the metal or the glass. So you've got so much action going on here too. So it almost is not a still piece. You know, it's hard to think of this as even that you captured it. I mean, it seems like it's still moving. You know, you just sort of lassoed it a little bit and can kind of try to hold it in place while it's still struggling in your grip. So yeah, there's just tons of pieces for this. And then it looks burned in a few places. And, you know, I don't know what must have happened here. But, you know, definitely, you know, a site of action of some kind. And and again, a lot of the contrast. You have the yellows and the blacks, and then you have kind of these, but then you have these kind of neutrals down here to kind of, it's soothing down there, and it's kind of more, you know, agitated on the top. So we could have great fun with this, you know, blow this up to like, you know, a big Rubens or something, you know, like 4 feet by 8 feet or whatever he did with all those fat women, you know, and just play with it for days on end. This is really terrific. Bravo.
Oh, I'm so happy you like this one because my wife doesn't like the really messy ones, the really dirty ones. And she doesn't like the ones that are kind of have graffiti or any text on it. It's just, she just can't get past that. You know, it has to be abstracts. And some of the ones that I only have a few in my house. I don't print off anything by myself, but for my birthday, she sort of just secretly printed a few things off and framed them. And I've got this exhibition coming up and I have to try and choose about 5 for it. And I really wanted this one for it. And she was like, and it's like, oh, I know you don't like it, but I'm so interested in people's choices because it kind of confirms my own likes as well. So
Validation. Yeah.
I need to print. I want to see what this looks like printed. Thank you so much.
Go ahead, Gudrun.
Yes, I think the colors in this picture are amazing. You really catch the sunshine in this color. It's the sunshine on the blue sky, which is very impressive. This yellow color is so beautiful. It's really like sunshine. So you catch the sunshine in this color, in this photo.
Ironically, it was raining on this day, and my friend and I were sort of just running from the Museum of Photography in Tokyo, trying to get to, and it was just pouring down. And he'd got to shelter, and I was just like, look at this thing. So it's so weird, the things that we get out of this, you know, all of the connotations and associations. It's not necessarily connected to the original thing, but I get that as well. It's just so bright. Thank you.
Well, color can certainly create a sense of light, even though it's not there. And I find that on surfaces a lot, especially white for some reason. And yellow, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah, and when I looked at this, I had the impulse to turn it clockwise. And all of a sudden, I saw a landscape with fireworks, and my association was, I think Handel did a piece called The Royal Fireworks. And so I saw this real classical image of fireworks dispersing in the 18th century, if that makes sense.
Fantastic.
I mean, do you guys see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do now.
For sure, fire. Yeah, the fire is strong on that one.
Well, to me,
There's actually a bird.
fireworks in the sky above this landscape, and
No, you're right.
it's always interesting to me how just your orientation can really make a difference in your experience of an image.
Totally.
It is astonishing, isn't it? And Alan, I don't usually hear sounds when I look at something. That isn't how my brain is wired. I think we're all like synesthesiacs to some extent, aren't we? And for me, it tastes. Like I describe things as delicious. But I can hear this now. Thank you. That's really interesting.
Well, I don't normally hear sounds either, but for some reason, Handel's what I can't remember the technical name of it, but I think he did this whole piece for the Royal Fireworks. And for some reason, that just kind of entered my consciousness. And now for me, it's inextricably part of this image for me, so which is pretty cool,
If I print this, I'll play that in the gallery. Thank you.
Ah.
All right, let's continue. Oh, look, here is the same
Talk
image
about it again. This really reminds me of a Handel piece.
Really?
Steve Wright.
Okay, next
The
one.
color's similar, isn't it? Yeah.
Anyone? Bueller?
It was accidentally chosen.
This might be Jess's actually. But all the same, such a beautiful, like it looks again like it's metal with some kind of reflective quality behind it. Or maybe that's yellow. It's just yellow, but it feels like there's a metallic glow to it.
This is almost like a really ornate mahjong tile. The rectangle part of that, like maybe on the playing surface. And I like to do electronic mahjong, but the idea that it's going to match up with something is like, oh, where's the pairing piece to this? Is it underneath it? Is it out of the out of the screen? And you do have sort of the pictograph, the angles and the graffiti or whatever it is inside there, is reminiscent of some of those little. I don't know anything about these characters, so I make up names for them. I go, oh, that's the thatched hut, and that one is.
You might be right.
Well, yeah, I could be, and looking it up, but and that's the with this too. It's like, is it part of a game? Did somebody set it up and go, here's a clue, now go find the other one. This is terrific. I really love it.
It's funny you should say that because in Tokyo, as I guess in other cities as well, there's a massive like sticker subculture, and like graffiti and any stickering is very illegal in Japan. It's quite dangerous, and you only see it in specific places. It's like electricity boxes and like maybe lampposts and just a few like random public places. You see loads of stickers, just hundreds, just squashed in one place. And I used to be a bit obsessed by that, but and I took too many photos of those things, but this is one of them. And you'll probably find this particular sticker, which is like really faded on the metal, and it was almost sort of transparent in a way, in many other places in Tokyo. But in a sense, it is a game that they're playing with the others, because you see them in different situations, different locations, and all of the people that are putting these stickers up kind of know each other, and they try to put them in the most interesting places. So it is a kind of game that they're playing, kind of like citywide game of like postmodern mahjong.
Neat. Go ahead, Josh.
Muriel was actually first.
Oh, I didn't see.
Okay, just a
Muriel.
question about that. I like to capture some street art and some details, but also I wonder if, well, I don't know, there are other art. I don't know if you see what I mean, but it's not like when we find a peeling poster or a tape and decaying, or this street art are art. I mean, so for me, it's not the same thing. And then recently I prevent myself from capturing this other people's art. I don't know if it's something well, you share about it, and at the same time, when it is street art, so where I don't have to mind about that because they are in the street, and well, just to have your opinion and your feeling about that.
It's like a homage in a way to these artists that are doing stuff anonymously, isn't it? And so I do like sort of framing other people's art, and I feel like maybe it's a collaboration, and I feel a sense of community, as I do with all of you, but also with these people, because they're out on the street. Why are they doing this? Like, they're not ever going to be there when somebody's looking at these stickers. They have no idea what effect it's going to have or what people think about it. And most of the time people think it's dirty or it gets ripped down or police are trying to arrest you for it or whatever. But there's a kind of connection or solidarity with the people that are doing these weird things. And then there's the accidental effect that they decay with time. And then I come along like a vulture, like a scavenger, and capture its kind of rotting carcass. And so it's part of an ecosystem, maybe, you know. They would probably come along and put a new sticker here, but I'm like, no, let me take a photo first.
Yeah, I think it's a communication system.
Yeah,
I think you're not a scavenger, you're a collector.
Yeah.
It's like Instagram.
And a collector in the best sense of the word, like people who collect art, appreciate art.
Yeah.
Some of them do it for value and whatever, monetary gain, but most collectors are people who appreciate and bring home as a way of perhaps saving them from the ravages of time.
Yeah. And then to make it into a piece of art yourself, I feel is the ultimate compliment. You know, it's not just stuck on a wall or, you know, put in storage or something. It's like, let's work together. I'm going to make this into something cool. Yeah.
Go ahead, Josh.
I was going to say it's a little like Instagram. An artist has put their art out in a place where a lot of people look at it, and it's a little like what Lauren was saying. The difference between Instagram, which is just the electrons, versus the physicality of a real photograph. This is a sticker. This is a real piece of art. It exists in space. It has a third dimension. But you showing it to us makes us confront that, which is exactly Lauren's point about a real piece of art as opposed to a purely electronic one. And I got to say, when Lauren said that, my initial reaction was negative. And I thought, I once paid like $20 to go to the Guggenheim to see a Jenny Holzer exhibit. Maybe it was more like $50, to be honest. And the Jenny Holzer exhibit was a bunch of electronic boxes that displayed digital information, mostly her text poetry, which is very punk and sarcastic and double meaning. But it was like, you know, big boxes just throwing up her text, which frankly, I could have just seen on my cell phone. You know, but that I guess the point was that it be physical. And then I thought how different it is, as Lauren said, that, you know, most of the time we look at this stuff on our phone, and yet today we're looking at it on our, I have a big 42-inch television. That's when you see me looking up, and I put the pictures up there and it looks glorious. And it definitely does. It completely changes the impression. And then that's one of the great things about digital is that you can put it in a theater 40 feet high if you wanted to. It's just you can route it wherever you want, but also like the stickers, it's all over the place. And the fact is, we're in this room we're looking at Instagram as we talk about it, and we're all together because of Instagram. Well, I don't know, maybe you brought us together, Paul, or you, Tim, I don't know. I don't know how I ended up here. I ended up here because I met people on Instagram, and they said, you should go. Actually, it's Ken Kurtz who didn't want to do it. Ken Kurtz, who you invited, and he didn't want to come, said, you should go seek these people out because you'd enjoy it, because you want to talk about art. He said, I don't want to talk about art.
Oh, that's a shame.
It is a shame. And you know what? And thinking about like what makes me grow as an artist, the first thing that it was taking walks with him and realizing that he saw stuff I didn't see.
Yeah.
Stop and line stuff. And then it would make me say, oh, what is he seeing that I'm not seeing? And it made me look deeper. But then the other thing was, then when I couldn't walk with him, I would look at his photos and I could see what he had done. And then after a while, it was like any artist who I see on Instagram or anywhere else, and I see what they've done if they're a photographer, and I can see, wow, it teaches me to try to look at that way.
Yes.
So yeah, I mean, so that's the other great thing about the group of us coming together as artists, is because we get to see how other people see the same stuff we walk by without bothering to look at. Anyway.
Yeah. And I love just hearing people talk about what they see, like how they describe it, how they put it into words, how they articulate what pops out from them, whether it's talking about the depth of the image or the, like just the language that we're using. I find really enriching for me when I'm out taking pictures, like, okay, I see that's where the depth is, or it just broadens my palette and my vocabulary of what I'm looking for, what I notice when I'm out actually taking pictures,
Well, that idea, Tim, that the more words you know for colors or for flowers or for birds or whatever, the more you see. Your perception is changed, isn't it? So this does enrich my mind. I'm just thinking we really should maybe go to Muriel, but Tim, can you just show me the pictures that other people chose? I'm very, very curious. It helps me with my curation.
Yeah. We'll really go through the rest of. Oh, there's another one. Someone chose
so people like this one. Okay.
Okay, it's not too dissimilar. This looks like looks like glue.
Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, these unintentional sort of pieces of art. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, hang on one second. Keep talking. I'll be right back. I'm going to switch to the next one here. Go ahead.
No, please. I have chosen the other one.
Oh, the spiral, the glue.
Yeah.
Talk about the other one. I still have it on my other screen.
All right.
Sorry.
What?
I kept coming up. I'm like, oh, they're still doing it.
Tim will come back in a minute.
Anyway, but I didn't want to leave it. Yeah.
Thank you.
He's got someone else there. Who's he got there?
My roommate just brought me some bacon. I'm a vegetarian, but my roommate every once in a while cooks bacon, and that's like her love language. She gives me some bacon every once in a while, so a little bacon break.
Difficult to resist.
Can you go back to the blue spiral, Tim?
What's that?
Can you go back to the previous image, the blue spiral?
Yeah.
Muriel.
Yeah. So I choose this one because, first, do I continue? Or?
Yes, please. Sorry.
Yeah, maybe Muriel, you could be the last person to speak. I'm just I want to move on to you, but I also don't want to move past you.
Your time.
No, I was hearing something, I don't know. Well, I love I like the sober colors, and I love the serpentine, like this serpent in relief. It's like a hypnotic spiral for me, and you go to the center, and also I see a lot of creatures, some of them facing each other in the lower left side. There is a little snake at the bottom, and there is also a horizontal at the top, an horizontal creature which is going to kiss a vertical one. In the center, you have I see a crab, but then I read your title. It could be a scorpion, but it is surrounded by a mother, like a motherless, another creature which is taking care of him. And then, I wasn't so, and I thought about it, and then it appears for me to be very similar to Matisse paint. Matisse, I don't know if I can put the image of in the link in the chat. I try to.
I think I know what you mean.
There's
the dancers.
several, the dancers. It is called the unfinished dancers, and also yes, it is. I think it's unfinished dance, something like that. There is other ones. One is called the blue nude also, and there I choose a third one, which is called to translate by better in the reeds or something like that. And really, it's for me, it's there's your image, your capture has a lot to do, to share with this Matisse paintings.
Thank you. I can see that flatness and those cut shapes. That's really interesting.
And I feel like the blue is a Matisse like staple too. I feel like Matisse that similar shade or that tone. Cool.
That's a nice connection. Would you mind flicking through the rest, Tim, just to see what people chose?
No problem.
Oh yeah, another sort of sticker, faded paper.
Cliffside.
Yeah. I like landscapes.
Wow.
Yeah, I love,
Graffiti is
really
and
I like this
wanted
one.
to mention very quickly, it reminds me of a George Gross.
Yeah. You're the color palette. I totally see what you mean. Yeah, thank you for your comment, Lon.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
But while we're scrolling, I wanted to throw something out here. No, you can keep scrolling. That's fine, because it's not about a specific picture. To me, many of these abstracts are like, and going back to Jonathan's interest in spirituality, is that these are like koans, Zen koans, where the master would convey his teachings through questions like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And I was thinking about this as a koan, and one monk might answer, it's middle C on the piano. And another monk might answer, and he may have said that because he's a musician, right? And like many musicians, they can imagine middle C in their mind. It just plays when they hear the word middle C. Another musician or another monk may have answered, oh, this reminds me of House of the Rising Sun. It's the note A. And the reason it brings that up for me is because my mother worked in a house of ill repute. And so the third monk comes up to answer the question, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And he says it's the 89th note. And so I think what we're doing a lot is we're saying it's middle C, it's A, but as koans, that's only identifying. We're saying, oh, it reminds me of a snake, or it reminds me of I see a face here, or I see a this, I see a that. We're not answering the koans. We're not getting to the moment of enlightenment if we stay hung up on what we're seeing as opposed to what's rumbling in our hearts. Because I think anyone could very simply go out and say, oh, this looks like a monkey, click, or this looks like a bridge, click. But I think we're only using those easily identifiable forms to go deeper. And one thing that I'm finding very difficult myself and also in the group is that these are simple solutions to the question. And the answer to these koans, if in fact they are koans, lies deeper, somewhere like off the piano in a different box, like the monk who maybe responds as the 89th key. And what I really wanted to talk about is titling, and how much titling can give us that easy answer. Oh yes, it's rain falling from the sky or something. Or sometimes our responses, our comments are, this reminds me of a da-da-da. Or I see, a snake. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong in bringing those things forward, because we all see them very, very differently. But I wonder whether, for example, a title, which is an easy way of looking at this whole dilemma for me, is in restricting our view or expanding our view. Whether if somebody says right beside their piece, for example, blue ice field, whether that limits our ability to look deeper into it, or whether it's simply part of the scrolling process. Okay, there's a quick solution to that koan. I feel satisfied now. I know what it is, as opposed to, I don't know what the hell this is. Well, this sort of brings this up, this brings that up. What about this feeling deep down in my gut? Can I put a name to it? And I guess my personal sort of gripe is that oversimplistic titles give us the answer to the koan without going very deep into the spirituality of it. And I throw that up for discussion.
There's this tension between reductionism and the countervailing Zen rebuttal of that. So reductionism says, let's get to the heart of something. And it's like Plato. It's like, let's find the ideal cupness, that describes all cups. Then the Zen thing is to say, no, the point is that you lose something in that word, in that generalizing concept, in that shorthand, and that you should banish that, and you should experience everything in a unique and individual way, which gives you great consciousness in the moment. Then of course you lose all the power of categorization and analysis. It's a very Western versus Eastern, but it's also a very left brain versus not right brain, not in the popular idea of left brain versus right brain, but in the more modern biological sense of one is trying to put things in a context, and the other is trying to bring things to a specificity. And there's different, that it's a dual-edged sword. It's not like, it's all about balance. It's not like one is better than the other. It's that both, being able to see things in a global way versus seeing things in a specific way. Each one is important, and they're antithetical to each other, and they're also two sides of the same coin in a yin yang way.
Yeah, that's the recognizing the A as the house of the rising sun, recognizing the middle C as a universal sort of vibrational thing that maybe relates to our heartbeat or something. But the third way,
maybe that superficial initial comment for that one person doesn't ring true for other people, or maybe it can be like a stepping stone to the deeper side of it. We can't like superficialize the superficiality and say, okay, that's the only thing. Once someone sees it, that's the only thing it can be. It's locked in as that. I think it can explode into different possibilities from there. At least the person's taking the time to interact and offer a clue. Yeah. Like, again, a lot of time on my Facebook, when I post that, I'll get 14 or 20 different sides of it. And I feel like when you get that many, then that reverts back in on itself and collapses it. And like, anyone can see anything in this, or I can see, like how we're doing it. I see this, I see that. Again, it expands the map. It uncovers the map of what the kind of the hidden map underneath it that helps to, I don't know, opens it up a little bit.
Let's open up to Muriel.
Okay.
Hey Tim, I'm wondering if you ever got my images. I never saw them. Did you?
I might have not got to them yet. Hang on, let's see.
Well, I think you went through all of Paul's images.
I may have.
I was going.
I'm just wanted to write down the message that I sent you. I mean, I don't want to spend time on it, but just let's move forward.
Good. I just want to see what Alan likes.
Yeah, please.
Or maybe you can send me this later, Tim.
Yeah, I'll send you. I'll post the links to everything that was chosen.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you.
In the group chat again.
Because
I try and organize these, but sometimes today I was doing a little bit quickly, and I think some got lost in the shuffle. So. But that was Paul. That was Alan's there.
I'll send you a message later, Paul, about my reaction, because I think we should move on.
Thank you. Yeah. Let's look at Muriel's. Thank you so much, everyone.
And since I have to leave at noon, could I go first when we talk about Muriel's?
Yeah. Hang on, let me just get Muriel's up here. Okay, I think it's this one here. Okay, let me just get Alan's. Oops. All right. Are you looking at the same thing, this image?
No,
we can only see your chat.
You're looking at my chat with you.
Okay, hang on. Let me do this. Stop share screen. Here we go.
Oh, nice.
Okay. First of all, I'm assuming this is a reflection in the water, but I'm really not sure. I mean, I'm like 80% sure, but the one thing I really liked about it, when I first saw it, obviously there's a figure walking, and the way that the image is rendered, I had the impression that this figure is walking into the future. But then I thought, well, is the figure walking in the future or walking into the past? I don't know. So it created this real ambiguity for me and a mystery. And for me, I learned a long time ago, my imagery, I love mystery in images. You know, when there's an ambiguity and you're not sure what's going on or what it's trying to say. So anyway, so this is a reflection in water, correct?
Muriel, are you there?
Yes, yes, it is. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but it's not. It's like the lines aren't really hard edge or distinct like I would expect, you know, a puddle to look like. So it's kind of, which is actually kind of cool because it adds to the abstract quality of the image, you know. But anyway, it's mostly that future and past kind of thing that I was wrestling with that really intrigued me about this image.
Thank you, Alan. That's nice. That's great. And I'm happy because, well, reflection for me, they have it's easy. It's like an easy way to take photos. And I've read in a photography a book about how to do a portfolio. Yeah, you understand portfolio? Or?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yes. In photography, and the author was saying, please no reflection. Well, it's like they are easy. So I'm always a little embarrassed, but also we can find great scenes in reflection, like in any other piece. So I'm happy I'm happy that you have chosen this one.
You know, and actually, as I look at it some more, obviously she's carrying a big bag, so she's carrying all her baggage into the future, which is very symbolic.
Yeah, yeah.
I like the level of Alan's responses, and it brings up another thing. I'm sorry about dominating here, but the first thing we tend to do when we see an image, an abstract image in particular, is orient ourselves in space in relationship to the image. So it's kind of identifying, okay, this looks like a reflection in a puddle. But then what Alan did was he brought his own narrative into it and said, I see a woman walking. She could be walking into the future. She could be walking into the past. And so we've gone a layer deeper than mere identifying the objects, and in a sense, what reverberated with Alan as far as a narrative. And I thought that was just great that you took it that far.
Well, it wasn't a conscious thing. It was more like an intuitive response to it. I mean, it wasn't like an intellectual interpretation. It was just like an intuitive response.
Yeah. That's the level it happens on, I think.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to continue. Anyone?
This was my choice.
Okay. Gudrun?
I like this picture because it's not only a picture, you can go on a trip into this picture. When you start on the right upper corner and move the ways, you cross a small forest, and then it becomes more like a jungle when you come down to the left edge. Then you end up in a field, and then you see a tunnel. And you can move into this open tunnel also along, it looks like a vineyard or something like this. And then you can really move into it, and it's really three-dimensional. And it's a very nice trip. You can really start and go around and end up somewhere in the infinity on some field somewhere. And therefore I like this picture. It's just black white, and but this makes it very impressive. So it does not need colors. It is very graphic also. And I'm wondering, what is this? where did you get this this picture? Is my question to Muriel.
Yeah, well, thanks for your words. I'm happy to hear that, because I can walk with you around, and then in the I was with you walking in the image when listening to you, and I recognize things I have seen. So, and well, I take this picture on when you have a shop, the glass, how do you call that? The glass there is in front of the shop.
Obscure the view.
Sorry?
To obscure the view so people can't look inside. Because maybe they're modeling.
Yeah. That's it. When they are something work in it. There's no, they put that before the working as the construction or something like that, before they do. That's horrible. Cannot find my words. Well, as you said, Wendy, and it's called Blanc de Meudon, and like a painting in white to obscure. And that's strange that you choose this. You have chosen this image, because for me it's like a reflection. It's something quite easy, because each time there is a lot of scene and a lot of things to see in that Blanc de Meudon, in that painting. I'm happy to.
It's really very, very beautiful.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Josh.
It's a three-way collaboration, it seems to me, between the workman who very hurriedly painted, and we see his brushstrokes, we see the human intent, then we see this random thing. So now we have entropy is noodling on the human's incidental brushstrokes. The drips down are fractal, and they're endlessly interesting because they are a little glimpse into infinity. And then the third layer is you have selected and framed it. And because you did so, we see forests. And we see forests for the same reason, because the forests are connecting in with the little algorithm that gets re-entered over and over again, this important part of fractal geometry. And that's what we're seeing in the drips. But we're seeing it because you framed it. So it's a three-way. There's intent and entropy and intent. And the entropy is taking the form of natural plant forms because of some underlying commonality of mathematics that connects them. But thank you, because yes, it is. It's a journey.
Amazing.
But it's funny. It's like I totally see the tunnel, and I see the pathway, and I see the vineyards, and I see all of that. And thank you, Gudrun, for describing it, because that's this thing where we as humans, we attach meaning, and we can't help it. And yet it's coming out of these natural processes. The reason why we see vineyards and forests and tunnels, well, I don't even need, now it becomes banal if I say the words. I almost feel like I want to try to do like Lauren and find some Zen way of making not see the words. Anyway, brilliant, Muriel.
I just want to say real quick, I'm seeing this much differently now than I did 5 minutes ago because of the comments. And reminds me of the story of, several blind men surrounding an elephant, and each one is asked to describe the elephant, and each one feels it and describes it differently because of what they, and not even, doesn't have to be blind, but just wherever you're standing, you see something different. So you describe your experience, and it benefits the whole community. And it creates a full image for the whole community, and other members of the community showed me things in this piece that I didn't see, you know, and now I see the forest and the tunnels and the depth and all of that, you know, so it's really a great experience.
Collaborative viewing.
Yeah.
In response to Josh's comment, I heard a story that when Inuits were first brought photographs, they didn't know how to look at them. They turned them this way, they turned them that way, and all they saw was black and white and grays. They had no sense that these were depictions of a reality until they were taught how to read, i.e. read the photographs, at which point they became quite adept at identifying. So it's curious how we, at this point in time, have lived with so many thousands of years of looking at objects of art and realizing that they're not dabbles of paint, in fact, that in fact they're portraying a story, a look, a building, whatever, and that we've learned to interpret these dabbles of paint or whatever as objects, as real life. And I think this is a perfect example of how we've been able to do that.
That's great, Lauren. And I just want to layer this observation in a Dadaist way on top of that one, which is children generally don't have memory until they get language. Think of your earliest memories and think of when you began to speak. It's the framework of language that allows us to remember. So there's that connection between seeing things artistically and perception is deeply rooted.
And I want to ask a question, Muriel. Speaking of language, the title is Surrounded. So do you use titles in English? And I'm curious why you do that since you're French.
Well, I use title in English because I post on Instagrams and I communicate, I exchange with you and not with French people. It's strange that I didn't know, I quite didn't know. Well, on Facebook, I have my friends reacting, but I am looking after abstract photographers in France, and I don't find them. So I put, and sometimes I have the French title, but I cannot translate it, and so I don't put title.
You know, and that brings something to mind. You know, for better or worse, Instagram affects me and what I post, and it has affected my creativity, and actually in an extremely positive way. The 3 years since I've been on Instagram, it's the most creative period in my life. And I'm extremely frustrated and angry with Instagram for different things. So it's a real mixed bag, but I do have to say that, you know, how we present the work sometimes affects how we actually create the work, which is an interesting discussion in itself.
Yeah, sure. But well, and about what just told and what you told, Alan, make me think that the words can help us to go deeper in the image, but also I have the feeling that the image precedes, is often before the words. Sometimes I see the image, and then after giving a title or even talking about it, this focus and go deeper. But first there is the image, which is a way to a wider way to see the world. Well,
great. Let's continue. I love that image. It's great.
Oh,
This is my choice. This was, I believe, a pretty recent photograph of Muriel's. And I chose this one. It was between this and another photo. Last night, the ancient deer came to my dreams. Those two, and what these two have in common is they're very dreamlike. This is for me, life. It's a view into a different world, and I love this for, and the other one, and I find them very similar in their kind of quality of taking us into a world that I don't know materially. I mean, it's a dream world. I really love Muriel's work, and I love her that she does interpret her work and she does title her work. A lot of times I'll see something and I will somehow identify with, because I love pareidolia, and I'll identify with it. When I first looked at this one, I saw the fence, kind of like a fence, and a scene behind, but her title just brought a new dimension of it for me. And I was really just love to see how she interpreted it. Behind the Fence by Night, Creatures Parade, or the comment or the title of what she's saying about this work. And it just brought some things into delightful perspective for me, seeing that. So I think maybe I was directed, and that's okay. In this case, it was beneficial to me to see where she was coming from. And I just think, Muriel, you have an amazing imagination. And I love that about your work. And so let me see if there's anything else I wanted to say. Oh, I wrote down a few notes. I said, in the framing of your images, you have corralled decay and chaos into beautiful, interesting, and balanced compositions. And I find this to be the case with your more purely abstract images and your more interpretive ones, like this one itself. One thing I noticed, Muriel, in your work is when you go back to your first posting was in December of 2013, and you didn't post a lot for a few years. And then it just seems like in the last 2 years, you've become an artist. And your work has become like incredibly refined and sensitive, and you've been very productive in the last couple of years.
Prolific and high quality.
Very high quality,
right? Like
prolific.
Yeah.
And it seems to me it's been the last 2 years. So I'm kind of curious, what happened with you, Muriel? what brought you to this? Was COVID a part of it? It has been for me, because it's also been a very productive time for me as well. But I'm kind of curious, what happened?
Well, difficult to say. Well, the thing I could say that I have always been photographing, but not abstract things. And during the previous years, I was writing a lot, and I switch. Well, the image are now taking a place than before the words had. And why? It's difficult to say. I think perhaps also before I was taking photo of street photo, seeing of people in the street, and it became more and more difficult, I think, because of the social media and Instagram and so on. People are reluctant to be captured, they use, well, the mind, their image matters, and so it's more and more difficult to take them to capture them in photographs. And so I think the abstract work is like it's a very I feel lucky to find that. So to answer you, and also I have met abstract photographers band. I don't know if I think you're having to encounter, to meet you, it's also a great stimulating way to me, and that's that boosts me taking photographs, these kind of photographs. And thank you, Wendy. It's moving and it's very interesting what you say, especially about the title, because I always hesitate between giving title and leaving the freedom for others, and that's great to hear that. And also, I have to say, I'm not very surprised that you have chosen this one, because this occurs sometimes, many times. I'm capture an image thinking of you, and like a tribute.
Awesome.
Yeah, I want to say, when I was looking for an image, I scrolled like I do with, like we talked about on Instagram. I just scrolled through quite quickly until I found something that really caught my attention. I don't know why this didn't catch my attention, because as soon as it went on the screen, it's whoa, I don't say this too often, but this, I feel a little jealous that you found this and that I didn't find this. And to me, I mean, you didn't even need to put that title, because I saw that right away. I saw it like a dinosaur behind the fence. And it's kind of funny. It's like that white figure at the top. It's not round like a moon, but it reminds me of the moon, like the moon's exploding behind these creatures. And so there could be some kind of deep layers, when you go in that direction with it. But yeah, it's a very, very fun image, and I'm quite drawn to it.
Thank you.
Extinction level event.
Yeah. Hey, that's the meteor.
All right, let's continue. This is amazing. Okay. Anyone on this one? I think this might be Greg's. I'm just going to quickly. Yeah. So Greg wrote.
Greg is here.
Greg, are you here?
No.
Yes, I'm here.
Background, he's around.
Okay.
Maybe
Greg, do you care to talk about your image?
Sorry, my video, my internet here is kind of poor, so I turned the video off so I can get a better stream.
All right. Well, we can hear you. We could hear you.
So I'm just enlarging the.
Okay.
Hold on. So, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry. The button to mute and unmute is on a different screen, so if I scroll back, I never know if I'm quite still muted or not. So I went through and I chose this picture because, unlike some of the other ones, and first of all, this conversation has been absolutely incredible. The insights and the depth and the knowledge that is being presented to talk about these images has just been eye-poppingly, fascinating. To see so much in these pictures that you might not see just on a scroll on Instagram, I think has just been well worth the price of admission here. So I chose this image because it's rooted in reality insofar as it's definitely a photograph, but it's also clearly a very constructed abstract. And I'm assuming that it's been found and it's more or less as is, because I think all of us find images like this. But it's different than everything else that really has been presented. And I think we can all agree that we can look at each other's pictures, and there'll probably be 60, 70, maybe even 80% of them. You'll say, you know, if I was walking down the street, I probably would have seen that, and maybe I would have taken that picture. And there's sort of a commonality with a lot of the abstracts that we all present. And I think it's interesting that we found each other as a community and discovered that, in fact, you're not alone in uncovering these images in the world. And being able to share that has just been wonderful. And like it's been said, it kind of pushes you forward to be a bit more focused and ambitious. And this one just came out as somewhat of a unique find. And it works on every level. The composition, the colors, the contrast, the fact that it has depth, but yet it's clearly just 2D. I like the sort of jagged edginess and the grittiness of it, but because it's so refined in its composition, instead it has a certain harmony rather than a dissonance. And that's what I really found, like, just that stood out among all the Muriel pictures, was those particular aspects.
Beautifully said.
Nice to hear. Thank you very much, Craig. A lot of things, what you said.
All right, we're going to continue on the cavalcade of images here. There's so many good ones. Can anyone claim this one?
That's mine. What I loved about this is I mean, it's a photo of what is sort of an assemblage, is that the word? Where people are making constructions out of disparate elements and just stuff they have around. And so this is like a leaf or a branch or something, but it is almost as if it's been manipulated into like a dancer or, you know, a figure. And then on this very rough surface. So it's almost as if, was this constructed, or, you know, it happened as a result of nature and wind and water and gutter stuff and all that. But it really looked like one of these tribal things. We see them in the Southwest in America a lot, you know, with basket type art and little wooden sculptures that are like little dolls or human figures that are used in rituals or you know, events and things like that. So it has this wonderful naturalistic part to it, but it also kind of takes you into a human, you know, a moment of worship or you know, communication or dance or something like that. So it does like several things all at once. And like I mentioned in the comments, y'all need to go on Facebook and see the Happenstantial Art is this group that Muriel and I are in. And she posts the most amazing stuff in that. And they have rules about you don't get to edit very much. You know, it's kind of what you see is what you got. And Muriel does wonderful work in that. So go and look at it. And this was something that reminded me very much of that group. So bravo, Muriel. I love it.
Thanks, Anne. Thanks. And just one thing about, well, I found it like that, like Paul, I didn't, I never, well, move the things. And in that case, I was tempted about removing the little white stick, but I prevent myself. I forbid myself to do so. And well, but I'm happy you see the dancer and and thanks for your words about the Facebook group. That's great, but I have to say I post quite the same image. I post a little bit more in Facebook, but I think there a lot of my images are both on Instagram and on this Facebook group. But you have also other artists very interesting for us and very similar to what we do here, I think. Wendy is also a part of this group, I think. And yeah.
I do it sometimes too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Could somebody just post the name of that group so I get the spelling
It's in the
correct?
chat. If you go in the chat.
I'm sorry. Yes.
But it's called Happenstantial Art. This is the name of the group on Facebook. Happenstantial.
Okay, I see it. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Anne.
Hey, I just want to say I have to get going, so I'm going to transfer this over to Tim. But
okay,
I just want to put out afloat an idea. It's hard for me to meet for more than a couple hours at a time. Is it possible to meet maybe every couple of weeks for a couple hours instead of once a month? Anyway, we don't have to discuss that, but I just want to float that idea for the time being.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I'd do it.
That would work really well for me. I could easily meet a couple weeks, every 2 weeks. So anyway,
that'd be good for me.
Yeah.
I didn't get that. Are you speaking about doing the video more often, or?
What I was suggesting, we do it every 2 weeks. We just pick one artist.
Yeah.
And then we don't have to rush through, but we can take a couple hours to talk about one's work. And if we do it every 2 weeks, that's the equivalent of doing 2 artists once a month. So, you know, we can discuss it in the chat though.
Yeah. Worth thinking about for sure. I think that's a good idea. Okay. How do we switch?
I'm trying to figure out, because it says end meeting for all, but usually it says, do you want someone else to? You're the co-host, right, Tim?
Host. I don't see co-host.
Okay, maybe. Oh, I just made you the host. Okay. Okay, that does it. Okay.
Okay, so at the end, I just
take everybody. Really
Hi, Alan.
See you, Alan. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Alan.
Take care.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks. So, Tim, it is still recording?
Yes, still recording.
Thank you.
And let me just double check that. Pretty sure it's still recording. I have control over the recording now.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, good. Let's continue. Wow.
That's mine and maybe somebody else's. And I wanted to talk about this, but I changed my mind, but now I'm changing it back. But Tim, do you mind having a look in your chat and getting the other one? Muriel, my reason for this one is I love the colors and the shapes and the patterns, but mainly biographically, which Wendy has already talked about. I love your work, and I'm so envious of it, as I am of many people's. And I can see we have a similar sensibility in some ways, but you also widen my imagination. But this one just popped up because often when we do these things, I go right to the bottom of people's galleries and work my way up, from the very beginning. And as Wendy was mentioning, you do lots of representational stuff, or you used to at least. And then suddenly this popped up. I just thought, this brilliant piece of abstract art. Where did it come from? And you've sort of talked about that a little bit. And so I'd like to hear a little bit more maybe about what was your attraction, and what was that shift that you made? And you said a little bit, people, it was becoming difficult to take photographs of people, but also I'm very intrigued by what you said about writing. What's the connection between writing? Obviously you have a great imagination. Is there a connection between writing, language, literature, and your abstract photography?
I guess so, but I think it's more transfer in my case. Well, when writing, I was going deeper in a small hole, like a bright hole, and I was like this. And when I'm going, well, taking more and more photographing more and more things, it's like an aperture, like a wider way of life. I don't know. And that, but about this image, that's strange. I really, it chose me, and
okay.
It was I wasn't well, this stuff has chosen me. And I remember my how I was marveled with about that. And this was, you're right, it was the beginning of something else. But I can't explain, except I really remember the instant, and I was, wow, could be that. Taking photo, well, photographing could be that, and well. But
I felt that excitement when I came across it as well. Like I suddenly saw you see your view changed, and you saw something new, and I went, whoa. So that's but and I just wanted to, Tim, could you just show the other message if that's possible, the other one?
I'm not sure which message you're talking about. You sent it in Instagram?
Oh, sorry, on on Instagram, direct message, just a new message I just sent you just now, because it's something I had stored up a while ago.
Maybe I didn't. I'm just going to refresh here.
Oh, sorry. Oh, and don't worry.
Oh, I changed my mind. Okay, here it is.
Yeah, because I just wanted to show this one, which I think is just brilliant.
Thank you for pointing that and for making that conscience to me.
Oh yeah, I could just see you shifting your vision.
But even though Paul rejected that one, I had also.
I'm not rejecting it.
Well, you changed your mind.
I changed my mind.
I'm joking.
But this reminds me a lot of Paul's sticker image, very similar.
Maybe that's my bias, but I just thought this one was so mysterious and so full of texture, similar to Alan's in a way. I just thought it's breathtakingly beautiful. And like Josh was saying before, you know, like the monolith, the obelisk in 2001, this has like just a weird, mysterious alien resonance. Like it's like I've never seen anything like it, but at the same time, it's a sticker on a wall. It's so good.
Tigerfish vibes.
No, not on a wall, on a glass, I think.
Oh, on glass. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, wow.
It
looks so metallic, doesn't it?
Yeah, wait, that was strange because there was a lot of transparency, and at the same time there was, I can't explain it very well, but it was yes, it was a glass and a sticker on a glass. And the white form have been painted before the sticker, I think. But as it was like a transparent tape or something like that.
I just love it. One reason I love it is because it's beyond words. I can't describe how beautiful and mysterious and strange and evocative it is. All I can give you is a string of adjectives. And so for me, I cannot contain it in language. I cannot. It's too much. It's too it's like chocolate. It's too delicious. All I can do is have more. That's I can't. I can only look at it more. That's the only thing I can do. It's a delight.
The upper third.
I agree with Tim. It is really similar to yours. That's perhaps why you cannot explain.
Maybe.
There's something going on where particularly in that upper third, it looks like a satellite image of lifeless moon, or somewhere that has some liquid process that's making stream beds. And I think that's some of that sense of deep meaning, is that here's this interplay between this regular rectangular form, which is Platonic, to sort of go back to that, the opposite of the Zen thing, this idea of a form. And the form represents consciousness, intent. It represents civilization, people, industrialism, and then what it contains, though, the actual substance of the rectangular thing it's like an infinity in a bottle. It's the infinity mathematics and the universality of these types of erosion features that are timeless and beyond universal. And so that's this, it's like wasn't there a thing in there was a science fiction moment where there was a universe, it was Men in Black. There was a galaxy in a small necklace piece that got affixed to a cat's collar. But it was an entire galaxy, like in real life, and they opened it up and they showed it to you. It's a full-blown galaxy. This is a science fiction conceit, but in a way, it's like it's here in the sticker is the universe.
I find it curious that most of us tend to photograph like directly 90 degrees at our subject. And if we tweak our sense of scale, what we get is aerial photography.
Yes.
And there was a great article written by Alan Sekula in which he criticized Steichen's use of aerial photography as art, because the images were actually taken during the war as reconnaissance photographs. And he ended up showing them in an art gallery without any reference to the war or to reconnaissance photography per se. They were just abstracts, very similar to that triangle that we're seeing in this picture, or almost anywhere on this picture, where it could be, 5,000 feet above the surface of the earth. And these could be streams or valleys or gullies or any number of things. And also just the texture itself could be forest or mountainside. So it's kind of curious how we're approaching our subject matter in this case, exactly like dead on 90 degrees to the subject, dead center. And then it opens up into potentially an aerial view of the planet. Satellite view.
Just noticing Paul's comment here, the lost notebook of the future.
Well, I was just going to say that, like, so many of Muriel's images inspire just phrases in me. Like I can, when she said, she's a writer as well, it made a lot of sense to me, because it's like literature is sublimated through the image. There's something about Muriel's imagination, which is a literary imagination, or it sees, it's attracted, it frames, it selects things which are literary in some way. There's a story, there's a narrative, or there's a world, the galaxy there. And they do two things to me. They inspire words, but at the same time, they frustrate words, which is a pleasure. So it gives me so many, like abstract expressionist work, words and metaphors and connections, but I can't get to the end of it. So I feel myself gloriously trapped in this huge web of connections, and I'm happy to be struggling there like a spider, like a fly caught in a web.
Yes, this speaks to me very well. Yeah, what you say about both inspired and frustration. It's they are both sides of.
Yeah, it's both sides of the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Muriel, do you understand what I'm saying about this idea of a literary imagination?
Yeah, I did. It's a surprise. I didn't heard about that and think about that before. But yes, it's very interesting. I will think about it, and literary imagination. I think it's about the relation between words and image again.
Because that other one, the white paint on the window, inspires so much narrative interpretation. I think there are maybe different types of imaginations, and for me, there is a literary imagination here, and there's rivers here, or streamers, or hands, or flippers in that rusted one as well. That's very appealing to me. I like that.
You have something to say?
I think, please, I just something is coming back about Wendy's question and Paul's question. The way I took to come to abstract was pareidolia. I began to notice more and more face, and then not only face, but also scene and landscape and a lot. Well, it was a way transfer pareidolia, and this the literary imagination is linked to that also, I think.
That makes a lot of sense. And Anne's comment in the chat is right on point as well. About the metaphors and themes emerging from them. They're so they're like little poems. They're like poems without words, wordless poems.
Well, and they're like poetry in the sense that, she's, really good fiction and really good poetry uses imagery, more than just sort of verbalization. There's allusion to, other themes rather than just here is the bowl of fruit or what have you. And what I see with her is like she's exploring that sort of stuff in a greater way than, say, realistic photographers do. They're trying to record the moment, the mountain, the snow, the sunrise, whatever it is. And hers leaves lots of room, of ambiguous imagery, which is, again, what's really makes poetry good, is when it isn't just one, I'm just trying to talk about one thing. You allude to things by your choice of words, or you choose a loaded word that has many meanings, like Paul, you said your God and paper are the same sound. Well, this is what she's doing here. It's something that's what's there, but it could be a lot of things. And, the ambiguity, and yet the, it is structured. It's not just blobs, but, it has multiple levels and meanings in it, and it's tremendous, which, if she's a fiction writer, you learn to do that.
Thank you.
Oh no, that's
excellent. Because the sticker isn't that identifiable as a sticker per se, at least to me. I have some consciousness of stickers out in my environment, but when I saw this, I didn't see sticker. I did see rectangle, and the dimensions of which, and particularly the shading down the left, implied a spine. So I did, slide into book. But when we have trouble orienting ourselves to the imagery, to identifying it as specifically as a sticker, which I still don't really identify it with, then our brain is like so active trying to find a comfortable place to stand from. And I find that tremendously exhilarating. And I do that with this particular image. That certainly happens to me. It never becomes a sticker for me. It's always a quest to identify it and to pin it down in a sense. It's kind of a free-floating pronouncement. It's like a grunt or a scream, much more so than a sticker to me.
I have a question for you, Lauren. This is something I kind of struggle with. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It was about identifying for your viewers what they're looking at.
Yes.
Sometimes I'll just, you get kind of tired of people saying, what is it? So I just kind of put it out there. Okay, dumpster abstract or whatever. If it's not, obvious, sometimes I'll just say it just to get that question out of the way. Do you think that limits the experience by telling somebody what it was and just kind of putting that aside? Or is it part of that quest that you were just, should I leave it to the viewer?
For me,
yeah, I mean, I'm just wondering, should I leave it to the viewer to just ponder, or should I just say it straight out?
Well, what I found most interesting in what you just said was that you were taking your cues from the viewers. I get tired of hearing blah, 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 blah. And I guess my position on it is, what is your position? Never mind the viewer. You're the artist. You call the shots.
Okay.
So if you see a certain picture that seems to need description, add the description. If you see a picture that you can't come up with a description, don't use one. Or repost it 2 years later when something comes to you.
Let them languish in their confusion.
But
actually, what I'm wondering, is it better for them to be confused and to kind of sort things out and engage the imagination in that process? Or is that a reductionist thing that they're just trying to find a safe landing place? Or I don't know,
Well, I've put my own personal views out there, but I don't want to impose those views and say, this is the right way. I think everyone has to follow their own path through the ups and the downs, the correct moves, the incorrect moves, and that we're all just moving through this.
Right.
So I don't think there's a definitive answer.
Okay.
We all probably respond differently to captions or not captions, or this caption or that caption. And as Paul just mentioned, these things just sort of come off the top of his head. It's like a spontaneous reaction. So, as I said in some other posts, I'm certainly not against any form of censorship, but I am for genuineness and being true to yourself.
Right.
About caption, I don't know if it's the same for you, but sometimes it occurs that I put I put a caption, and after with time, I don't recognize it. I mean, I see my image, but I say, but what what is a title? What is a caption? Well, I think I'm changed my mind more than about titles and about image.
Yeah.
Can I add something to this?
Yeah.
I think, Wendy, what you're asking, like Lauren said, it's funny. What is it you want from the potential person looking at? Yeah, and this is a lot of persons. What do you want to show besides or not besides the image? There is not only one observer. If you leave them in their confusion, which I am totally for, I actually want to confuse them more. But anyway, if you leave them in their confusion, you will attract some, I will say, minds, right? Because the I mind thing, they're like, oh, and the fact you don't give them something in the title or a description, which might not be the title, it makes them want to see it more, which takes us to that we were talking about, looking at something and noticing and letting it be, make you feel things just beyond the act of just looking. Like when you have students, you got all these teenagers who kind of don't want to really be doing what they're doing, but you push them a little bit. You put some breadcrumbs, so to speak, so they can slowly feel they are discovering something. I kind of approach my potential observer like that. Not that my observer is anybody in particular, but I mean, I want them to engage in a funny game of my invention. Sometimes no, some other, but what I mean is it has to do with what you want in your potential observer, not so much who will see it in Instagram or not. And here we go, it touches a bit too, where we're talking about the stream of images Instagram is, unlike images, let's say printed or whatever. Not just Instagram, like there's all these other platforms that have been around for ages or are recent, and they show you the image slightly different. I particularly don't like Instagram on how it shows me the images, because it, well, the point is you attract who we want, who is tuning in to see your image and what they're letting you take from them, so to speak, pull from them. Muriel's images, I think, where a lot of us see in her images a lot of our own themes, because she is so, your work has so many themes, or you've got some more figurative, some the reflections. I love your reflections. Forget whatever those people said about portfolio. They don't understand. What I mean is you have to pull your observer, and by doing that, as Lauren says, you might choose not to put a title, or to give. I like giving kind of titles that do not make reference directly to what you're looking at, but to what I'm looking at. Or you can make you can. I had a student who, instead of liking doing the untitled 1, 2, 3, he's like 8.1, 8.6. Then you start wondering why are these things called like this? He's just attracting you. Yeah. So our colors, our compositions, all of this are different ways in which we're trying to communicate, kind of like birds dancing in funny colors, or way we're trying to say something and attract, oddly enough, attention from the stream of millions of people scrolling through their thing. In my case, last thing, sorry. Like most of my photos are old. I did not make them for Instagram. Unfortunately, your comments and my interaction with you has not affected anything, the photos I've done, because they're 10 years old or whatever. But when I made them, I was in another group, and it affects you a lot. So I sometimes wonder, I say, should we do like a second row? How should I say it? Sorry, I'm not being able to explain myself. I'm really slow today. I'll leave it there, just for a further thought. How do you do it for yourself and not for others? And what are you willing to do for others, because they are so nutritious to your creative process? I'll just leave it there, because my headache's a bit mean.
just a short response so we can get back to the work. But I would say that, let me just collect my thoughts for a second. I was talking more actually about descriptions, telling people what things are rather than the titling. Like, so that it just answers the question. But I can see your comment, in your comments, that it leads to more engagement if the person, you know, is left wondering and enters in more to spend more time with it and figure things out.
Or even if it drives them to ask, like that's an action,
right?
You know, of interest, of interaction, engagement.
Yeah. So I think it has value that way, because they have to stop and think, or if they want to stop and think, if it's engaging enough to draw them in the first place, and I hope it will be. But with titles, I don't do those with other people in mind. That to me is a response to an image. I do the one thing I do keep with people in mind is try not to be too directive, to leave the titles open enough where it doesn't funnel somebody down to see something a particular way, my vision, but to leave it open so that they can engage their own imaginations.
One tiny thing I'll add. I think there's a very interesting distinction or gradient of distinctions between how we see what we're seeing and we photograph it, and then how we show it to others to see what we're seeing. So, for example, dumpster abstracts. Oh, that could be like the name of a show, so to speak. All of Wendy's dumpster abstracts. But then that would, for other people, that would be like, oh,
ew, yeah, that's gross.
Even if it's not dumpster, it could be like wall abstracts. Oh, more walls, kind of boring. I want to see more. I mean, it predisposes you. Some people, dumpster loving people, will be like, yes. But well, I think that's one level of description. But when you use the images of, like in your case, dumpster abstracts, but you don't say they're dumpster abstracts, but you don't say whether that you say something else, or you don't say, or you mix them with other things. For example, in Muriel's case and her stream, I feel that a lot. There is people, there are reflections, there are shadows, there are highly abstracted things, and some that are really more kind of still lifes. And so there's like, you as a viewer start playing a game. You don't really know what you're doing, but you start associating more senses. That's what I mean. There's like a wide array of, like in language, you would say the noun, the article, the noun, the verb, something else, the adjective. But you can turn the adjective into the noun and change the phrase completely, how I'm showing you something. I think Muriel does, oddly enough, that was my point. Muriel does that a lot in her images, and that's why perhaps she doesn't remember the caption or the description later on, because you're not sure if you've created something through the visual description or through a linguistical description. Sorry.
Hi, if I can, just on your topic of dumpster is art. I was out walking with my dog, which is typically when I take my pictures, and a car suddenly comes running up past me and stops and cuts me off. And the guy's like, what the hell are you taking pictures of? Because he sees me taking a picture of basically a garbage skip. And I'm just like, I'm taking art. And he's like, art? He's like, it's garbage. And I said, well, no, it's all in how you see it and you frame it. And I tried to show him the pictures when he's sitting in his car, huffing and puffing. And we ended up having this whole discussion about what is art from somebody that really, I think, doesn't appreciate art in any way, shape, or form, but trying to convince him that, you know, the abstracts that we've all seen, in fact, are art. But he was seeing it only in the concrete terms of the here and now, of someone pointing their phone at a garbage skip. And I just thought it was fascinating to actually reach out to somebody right at the moment to try to describe what it is that we all are trying to do in very concrete terms. And it was really difficult to do because it's an abstract and it's what you see in it. And, you know, tied to sort of the discussion of titles in some way help the audience to understand what the artist is trying to see. And as everyone's kind of mentioned, at the same time, you define it, and therefore you kind of perhaps limit the way that other people might try to see it if they saw it raw without any kind of leading. And the discussion that I was having with this guy who had just, you know, angrily stopped wanting to know why I was taking pictures, just really left me with that. It was like, well, how do you describe an abstract to somebody who doesn't understand, you know, really the basic concepts of appreciating art?
Mm-hmm. Speaking different languages, basically.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, art is highly coded. It's like the language that dentists use when they talk about decay. You know, it's a highly specific coded language. And granted, and the evolution of art from highly representational to where it is now, conceptual, abstract, all over the place. It's no wonder that people don't understand it.
All right, we're going to move on to this next picture here because we're down to our last 20 minutes, and I want to make sure we get a few more of Muriel's brilliant works in here. Yeah. Anyone claiming this one? No?
I'd love it if you do mine, since I didn't get to do my selection.
Yeah, I just called yours up, actually.
I quite like that moment of silence, actually, just for a few seconds.
Taking it in.
We were just looking at it and nobody claimed it. It was quite lovely.
No, it was beautiful and wonderful photo, and I would happily workshop that previous photo. But I kind of wanted my own selection.
Yeah. Please.
You know, I mean, what do you say? So I you know, I keep returning to this theme of loving the tension between what's represented and the act of representing, and also the human framework and the intent, like, you know, where it was the pane of glass that the workman had painted over, and then the drips had created the vineyards. You know, here we see obviously machine-made piece of thing with paint that's crackling. So it's so mundane, and yet in the crackling there is a multitude of complexity, nonlinearity, mathematics, biological forms. There's a thicket of bamboo. There's biological limbs from arthropods or bacterial colony or fungal colonies under a microscope. It's universal. It's organic. It is the antithesis of the ordered world of the lock in the upper left-hand corner. It's that tension between the human and then the stuff we can't banish, the messy universe that creeps in everywhere. But also, it's what Jonathan Roland said, which was that the universe, when this is like almost like scale independence, the universe can be found, the miracle of the universe can be found in the tiniest detail. And so here's this little corner, this piece of metal, it's probably a couple of inches on the side, and it contains this universe of complexity within it. So I love it. Great stuff, Muriel. Bravo.
Thank you, Joss. I like your words, and it speaks to me a lot about the very small things being like the universe and the the relation without it. And as I hearing to you, I thought about well, the title, the caption had to be very concise, a few words, I think. But I mean, when listening to you, I would like to put a very long title to this image, as long as what you have said, all your words. That could be a good title.
What was the title for this one, Muriel? Did it have one?
No, I don't think it have one. Yeah, because it indeed, because I cannot choose between the biological side and the universe side, and it was too difficult for me to choose. That's why.
There's no choice. I think the point is that it's both. And then the crazy thing is the idea that just the way the paint breaks looks like these things because of some fundamental reasons why these things are universal, or so commonly seen. You know, there's some underlying unity. That's the implication.
As above, so below, that kind of theory.
Yeah, and that's why it feels like it's meaningful, because it's connected in a way that is actually meaningful.
Right. It's not a coincidence that other things look like that, because there's forces of nature that encourage that kind of shape to be made.
Look at
chaos.
Look at Gudrun's background. At the same time, we're looking. I mean, they're both crackling paints. The only difference is there's like some different properties, chemical properties in the paint, which probably, and you know, adhesion to the surface, and you know, a material scientist could just like say, you guys are spinning poetry out of nothing. This is just cracked paint. It doesn't mean anything. Or the mathematics are really simple and there's nothing profound at all about them. And I think that's the thing, is the mathematics are really simple and there is nothing profound at all about them. And that's why it's profound.
Beautiful.
Well said.
It reminds me of
oh, sorry, go
I
ahead.
just put a YouTube clip in. The French philosopher Deleuze and his partner Guattari had this idea of the rhizome root structure, which is not sort of centralized like a root structure, and it branches off in horizontal ways, and there's so many possibilities. And it seems like what our conversation is like as well. But it just reminded me of that that biological metaphor, which seems to be so potent to us. Check out that video.
I'm going to drop this book in there too. Oh, you can't see it. It's a book called Lee, Dynamic Form in Nature by David Wade. Here, let me
your background. Yeah,
wow,
your background
cool.
is muting it out because it's
can you see it there?
Yeah. Yes. Can you make it closer? Make it closer. Hang on.
I can't make it closer. The background's going to blur it out.
Oh, it gets blurred. Please put the title in the chat.
Background. Can you turn it?
Yeah, hang on.
You unblur your background, yeah.
But it's funny about the background fighting you. You know, it's
there we go.
Oh yeah.
It's called, and so what it is, it's descriptions of all these different types of forms of nature. It's a really short book, and it's all pictures, which gives you like names, kind of Latin names for all the different types of cracking, root structure, like cabbage, fractaloid.
Oh man, this is fantastic.
Oh wow.
Rhizome must be in there as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, this is the language that we are developing.
Right? So this is
it's the new type of photography,
it's the visual language of all these different structures that we see in nature, given name, whether it's leaves. I'll write it in the chat. It's called Lee. Here, let me write it now.
It's a Linnaean taxonomy. It's a you're right. It's a key. That's brilliant. But you know, but as Lorne would say, or as Lorne would point out someone else saying, the Zen response to that is we should resist this. I'm totally a sucker for it. I'm completely buying that book.
I'm a sucker for it, and I understand.
I don't think it should be resisted. I think it should not limit.
Yes.
Yes.
It's okay to have this kind of knowledge, this I guess it would be right brain, left brain knowledge, this categorization process that we're so obsessed with, but we shouldn't limit our understanding to our rational side, to naming such and such a crackling, et cetera, et cetera. It's a form of knowledge, but it's a limited form.
Well, it's a language. I think, again, it's a language, and like any language, it's alive, and you can compound words. There's no, like, it's a language.
There's a paradoxical nature to anything, and this is what we keep getting tripped up by. Everything is yin yang. Everything is a dual-edged sword. Everything is a balance, and a balance between the polarities that were, all right, so my articulated just went away, but I was close for a moment there.
No. Josh, that's exactly what it is. It's a double-edged sword in a sense. Language can it's both precise, like a sort of instructional booklet, for how to put some furniture together or something. And so it can limit, and it can give one meaning, and you need to have it give one meaning. You don't want ambiguity when you're trying to make a bookcase, unless you're like really aggressive sculptural artist, and you don't care what your house looks like or where your books go. But at the same time, language is poetry. So it's both at the same time. Yeah, it's dual. And I wanted to say to Lorne about the koan thing. I think that's so important, because what we're doing is asking questions to ourselves and other people through our images and our titling or non-titling. Why is there no title? But in the question and answer sessions between like the novice monk and the Zen master, you have to go through that process. You have to give a question and answer, like, what is the sound of one hand clapping? You have to give an answer, and then you see that it's limited or frustrated, and then you give another answer, then another answer, then another answer, then another answer. You keep going for weeks, for months, until your brain stops, or it explodes, or it breaks, or you realize you don't have a brain and there is no question, or whatever. But you have to go through that process. So you can't resist it. You have to plunge into it, but that's not the end. That's not the answer. The point is not to get to the answer. The point is to keep the question open.
Well said. All right, I'm going to keep pushing through here a little bit. We've got a few more. I want to make sure Muriel gets to see all the choices too. Just going to call them up here so we have them handy. Do people know who's it? Oh, that's a double. That's Muriel's. Oh, that's a double too. Okay.
Sorry, the one back, this one, yeah. I made one choice on this.
Yeah.
I don't know if another person did. I didn't select it because of the title, but when I started thinking about titles and the title, I got very annoyed because the title was so obvious, and I saw it so differently. And so I found myself fighting the title. And of course I can see it. I can see the tsunami. I can see the building. But it's kind of an anchor on my appreciation of the work and my understanding of the work.
What is an anchor?
The title.
An anchor is what you drop off a boat.
Yes,
the boat
an anchor.
Okay, excuse me.
Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. That I couldn't push out of my mind. Well, I could, but just like an anchor, you can drag an anchor along with you. But if you're trying to go home for lunch, you won't get there till dinner with the anchor out there. So I found it difficult to rid myself of the anchor. And I just saw so many other things in this piece that it annoyed me.
What were some of the other things you saw?
First thing I saw, unfortunately, was boobs.
Maybe you need a title, Lon.
That's Zen. I think we're getting somewhere.
Absolutely. I like boobs.
This is where we
What
need
can I
to end the
say?
chat, I think. We should just end there. Can we just end there? Lorne's final comment. I understand what Lorne's saying. Yeah. Yeah. Oh no. Maybe I should take all my titles away now. I'm going to go through Instagram and delete all my titles.
Yeah.
But then I'll put them back again because, as Josh was saying, it's a double-edged sword. I don't know. Can I have two accounts? One of them, they're exactly the same, just parallel.
Put two titles.
One with, one without.
Or a mechanism that one can choose to pop up the title, but it doesn't appear.
No, because you can have the number of likes shown or not. The count, can't you? I think Instagram
that would
changes.
be a good suggestion to Instagram. Say, like, for certain artists, we won't. Yeah, that'd be a great suggestion.
I don't want to see the title or not. Yeah. Or other people's comments until I reveal the comments, because other people's comments, like, change your interpretation as well, don't they?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I'm sure Instagram would be very amenable to a very niche abstract photography community changing the way they act.
Yeah, I like it. I'll suggest that to Instagram. I'll send them a suggestion.
I'm sure they'll listen.
But I think this is my point about Instagram being a medium unto itself. Before Instagram, you had pictures on a wall, and people would title them or not title them. There's no place on a photograph that you're supposed to write the title. But the fact that we now have a format that in many ways demands, call it a title or a caption, then all of a sudden we feel we have to provide this information. And
right, there's something there's a space to fill in.
There's something in the medium that's different from a piece of paper under the enlarger or something of that nature.
I do feel, though, less pressure to title on Instagram than I do when I show my work in actual physical shows, because a lot of them actually require a title. And so that's how originally I got into the practice of titling my work. It's just, so I felt more of a pressure in the physical world than the virtual one.
That's strange to note that in many exhibitions you have written no title for
really
near to the photographs or the painting.
Yeah. Untitled.
It's interesting. You're not allowed to have no title. You have to say untitled.
Which is a title in itself.
Exactly.
The title is how curators identify this photograph versus that photograph. So it could be, for example, untitled number 1, untitled number 2. And so when you're creating a list of all the pieces in the show, you can differentiate the blue one from the yellow one with a title.
Yeah, and it's interesting.
And then artists have taken that whole realm into all
filing
kinds
purposes.
of places in terms of the interaction of title to image.
Yeah, you're already interacting with the audience. You've already made a selection out of reality. You've made an image out of it. You've printed the image, and you're saying, "Come look at it." So you're already dancing. So why not dance one more step and give it a title and say, I don't know. That's my my response is I don't know.
I'm at the bar. I'm not dancing. I'm at the bar.
Visual poetry of word poetry. I don't know. Yeah. I hear you though. On the other hand, it's like you're not supposed to there was this question in literary analysis where you're not supposed to question the author's intent. You're just supposed to analyze your response to it. And in a sense, the title telegraphs the author's intent in the image. And you're right, it does hamper your free association ability. If they said, here's a dragon behind a fence, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I don't see a dragon. I want to just see the universe in abstraction. Like, you know, I hear you. I'm not contradicting you. But
it's Schrodinger's abstract. It can be both both a cat alive and dead, as long as you don't name it one of the, as long as you don't open the box.
It's a dual-edged sword again. And I'm going to say this, like all these dual-edged swords, I see them everywhere in the universe. And the thing that comes up a lot is in this tension between biological forms and textures of decay. Entropy is the great end of the universe, right? In cosmology, it all ends in heat death. Everything dies in the end. There's no defeating entropy. It's the second law. It's the thing that you cannot escape, and it's death. And entropy as a symbol represents things falling apart, and it's death, and it's bad, except life happens in the flow between lower ordered states into greater entropy states. So like in 1943, Schrodinger wrote about on life, and they talked about what the molecule ended up being DNA, but they talked about what it would have to be. And he pointed out life is this thing where localized flows of entropy are resisted with this self-organizing, molecular self-assembly kind of feature of the flow of negative entropy, of a force towards local force towards organization rather than entropy's disorganization. So it's actually the flow from the ordered state of the Big Bang to the heat death of the universe. It's the flow of that that creates molecular self-assembly, that creates abiogenesis, that is the creator of life. And so, you know, you can't hate entropy for being the death, because it's also the creator of life, the flow towards it. And so everything's a dual-edged sword and a paradox. And that's the unfortunate state of the universe.
I think that's as good a place to finish things off as any. I mean,
but that's why you see biological forms in rust and in paint cracking. They're both from the same impetus on some level. They're both part of the same process.
Yes.
But the metaphor goes all the way.
Yeah.
Sorry, I fell off. The internet doesn't like me after like 2 hours. So I'm just wondering if you went through the other images or like
I just clicked on them briefly. We don't have time to keep going.
I understand.
Shortly. But that's yours there.
Cool.
And yeah, we got a couple of minutes left, so I'm just gonna, first of all, I'm gonna remind people to save the chat, download the chat. I'll post a comment. I'll when I have the recording, I'll see if I can include that as well. But I thought the chat was pretty slamming today.
How do you save it?
You go into chat and in the at the 3 dots, there should be 3 dots there where it says, if you drop down menu that says save chat.
Okay. All right.
You should save it to your desktop or something.
I don't know where it saves it to. It's
I lost it all.
I'll repost it. I'll repost it.
Yeah, I don't know.
But I just want to thank everyone again. Like, yeah, Paul and Muriel, 2 of my super favorite abstractors.
Thank you.
Great to
Thank you.
Great to get more insight into your thinking of like how things are going. And so the words I had for that were common for Paul's were atmospheric, color master, composition, I don't know what that word is, minimalist, imaginative, range of action, depth, subtle, and contrast. Immersive, that was the other one. And for Muriel, mystery, symbolic. And the thing that kept coming up was this tension between harmony and chaos, structure, ambiguity, dreamlike, different worlds, imaginative, prolific with quality, poetic. Anyways, lots of great description words there. Thank you both. Thank you everyone for contributing. Thanks for Alan for hosting this on his server and letting us record it. And yeah, this will be on YouTube eventually, and I'll send around the link to it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thank
This is
you.
always fantastic. Always fantastic.
That was a great 3 hours. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you so much. Love
Always
that.
Keep on doing it.
Always
Keep on
good.
taking those photos.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.